Alright, what's going on everybody? Welcome back to another video here on the channel, and today we're going to be talking about a new documentary that was uploaded pretty recently to YouTube that has basically been making the rounds around social media. Now, this isn't the typical, World War II historical type of documentary that you might be interested in. Nothing about, anything really that you probably would know much of. This basically is a documentary filmed by Josh Peters that involves an OnlyFans model by the name of Lily Phillips. Now, apparently, Lily Phillips has been doing OnlyFans for some time. She kind of goes into her backstory as to how this entire thing started. I guess she was just, a pretty frivolous, woman in college, and she just decided, fuck it, I'm gonna start the OnlyFans, but that's not really the point, okay? The main event of said documentary is the fact that she plans to have a slumber party, I guess is the best term, with 100 men in the same night. So I think it's pretty crazy, the concept of, having 100 people that you've been with in your entire life, right? That's an insane number. That's a completely out there figure. But of course, to think that you could do all of this in one night, okay, is just, it's fucking insane. So this is making, like I said, the rounds on social media. People are talking about it. There's a lot of clips kind of going viral now. As the documentary goes to basically unravel here, Lily, who previously was doing OnlyFans and was a pretty out there kind of woman, had some pretty deep regrets, I guess is the safest way really to put it, about the entire experience after it was all said and done. And there's a lot of debate about this, who is in the wrong, who bears fault for how this entire thing went down. There's a lot of different diverse opinions on this. For instance, you have a lot of people who are siding with Lily now that she's extremely regretful. They're blaming the men who partook in the 100 versus 1 battle royale, if you will. And then of course there's people who are just outright blaming her, why would you allow this to happen to you? This is absolutely disgusting. So I guess the best way to really dive into this, I think, is to show this clip that really, I think, sums up how Lily thinks as a person, okay? Now, it's not always fair to judge somebody off of one clip, but this, I think, would have said enough. So
you would let these guys do that on your face?
Yeah.
And in your mouth?
Yeah.
What if they had HIV?
Is that where it comes from? With spunk in the mouth?
It can.
Oh, really? See, I've never really thought about that. Last time when I did it, all of them could in their mouths. I can't really explain it. I get serotonin, from when people are oh my God, you're that on the internet. Sounds crazy.
I know, and I know you're saying that to me right here, but I don't believe that.
Really?
No.
Now, in that clip, Lily basically admits she doesn't know how HIV and presumably other STDs are spread, okay? Now, obviously, STDs are a pretty big deal. It's pretty disgusting. Lots of health consequences, not really something you want to deal with, right? Now, this is a woman who has admittedly been quite open with men in the past, if you know what I mean. And she has no clue how STDs and other shit like that is spread around. So this is somebody who is so willfully ignorant about the consequences of what they're doing that not only are they putting their own health at risk, they're putting other people's health at risk by going around and sleeping with them. So it's pretty insane to think that as an adult, you don't actually comprehend how sexually transmitted diseases are spread. The concept that bodily fluid might contain some fucking ill, virus or something that you don't want. Apparently that's news to some people. I don't know. That blows my mind in and of itself. But like I said, she goes on and has her dealings with 100 men. And of course, beforehand, she had a pretty different opinion on things because, it's one thing to say that you're gonna do something like this and then a completely different thing, really, than just, I guess, actually going and doing it. So she ends up doing the deed, right? 100 men in one day, which is just a truly awful accomplishment, I think, to really try to put to your own name. I mean, I'll be honest, if I were a father, right, I would never want my child to have the title of being the person who slept with 100 strangers in one night. That's not really a great thing. That's not really an awesome fucking super dope swagtastic thing to go doing. And yeah, well, it turns out that it wasn't actually great, you know? It turns out that sleeping with 100 strangers that you don't know all at the same time didn't turn out so well. Now,
when was the last time you ate?
I think I had a yum yum, and I think I had a sandwich, and that was kind of, and then the rest. It's not for the weak, girls, if I'm honest. It was hard. I don't know if I'd recommend it.
Why not?
I think if you're a different type of girl, it's very like, it's kind of like being a prostitute in a sense of like, it's just a different feeling. I don't know how to explain it, like.
It's not like just having sex with someone.
Yeah. Just one in, one out, like it feels intense.
Like more intense than you thought it might.
Definitely.
Now, as you can see, she holds a lot of regret for what happened. She compares it to being kind of, you know, like a whore, or apparently it's nothing like one-on-one relations with another person, which I'm really not trying to be mean, because like I can tell this is one of those degenerate activities that probably fucked with everybody involved mentally, right? But did you really need to go through this to find that out? You know what I mean? Like, it didn't really compute in your head that maybe there's a little bit of a difference between me having one partner who I care about or whatever, right? And having 100 complete strangers that are all masked that I don't know, basically run through me like the fucking plow horse, right? Like, I just don't really know what she expected, right? Like, I don't know. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to imagine that this would just be terrible for everyone involved, right? Like, obviously for the girl, she is sleeping with 100 men she doesn't know. She doesn't know their health, their like validity of the health and everything. I'm assuming they weren't very respectful of boundaries from the descriptions that was put in this documentary. All of the guys were wearing masks, apparently, and it just, like, from the way it's described and everything, it was never going to be a pleasant experience, right? It wasn't going to be, like, some sort of fucking, like, super awesome time for everybody involved, right? Like, even, like, as a guy, I can't understand why anyone would want to participate in this, right? Like, there's 100 different dudes involved in this at the same time. I mean, that's just fucking disgusting, let's be honest here, right? Like, that's just gross. Like, imagine being guy number 78 in this entire thing, right? You got 77 guys in line, right? They're all ahead of you, basically, okay? They get their turn first. Now, from the description in this whole thing, she promised all of them 5 minutes individually. So that is, at bare minimum, right? 500 minutes that she had to endure all of this bullshit, okay? Now, if you break that down, she probably spent over 8.5 hours straight doing this, okay? Now, they even interviewed some of the men, right? And they didn't seem to have great things to say about it. Like, one guy, for instance, said that, like, he didn't know how many guys went before. No idea. It bothered him knowing, like, I have no idea where I basically fit in the line. Apparently, like, if his family found out, he would have been kicked out of his fucking house. He was, like, ashamed, basically, to have done it. He didn't want it to get out. It's like, nobody involved in this was proud after the fact, right? And realistically, like I said, it shouldn't have taken rocket science to figure out that this wasn't something to be proud of. Like, this is just, it's beyond disgusting. Like, having all of these people performing the same thing, like, what the fuck? It's just disgusting to even think about. I mean, it goes beyond, like, OnlyFans content or whatever. That is just, like, outright, blatant, insane degeneracy from everybody involved. Like, nobody left this probably an actually better man or a better woman or anything, right?
I think sometimes, like, feeling so, like, robotic. Like, by I think, like, the 30th, you know, like, when we're getting on a bit, I've got, like, a routine of, like, how we're going to do this. And, like, it just... Sometimes you'd like disassociate and be like, you know, like it's not like normal sex at all. In my head right now, I can think of like 5, 6 guys, 10 guys that I remember, and that's it. But it's just, I don't know, it's just weird, isn't it? Like, if I didn't have the videos, I wouldn't have known I've done 100, you know? But yeah. I think that was kind of the hard part, is like conversing with them and like when they'd kind of be like, oh, like we've only had 2 minutes or 3 minutes and you said 5 on the message.
Did someone say that to you?
Yeah. And obviously it just makes me feel so bad.
Do you think you should feel bad about that?
I guess when you've promised something to people who support you, it's kind of hard to let them down.
But it's up to you, right? Like when you know.
Yeah.
Have you even processed, do you think, what's happened?
Not yet. God, I won't forget this day, Jesus.
When I decided to start making this documentary, I wasn't too sure of what to expect. I certainly didn't expect to see Lily so upset at the end of it all.
Now, in this clip, she basically describes how traumatic it really was for her. Now, she doesn't outright say like, oh, this was like the traumatic thing. This is horrible. But she says shit like, well, I only remember like a handful of the people that participated. If I didn't have video, I wouldn't even know about the rest of them. At a certain point, you just start dissociating. And when you hear shit like that, it immediately triggers like that warning sign where it's like, dude, this is not somebody who is enjoying what they're doing. This is not somebody getting satisfaction out of what they're doing. This is somebody's brain like shutting down as a fucking trauma response where it's like, okay, I'm going through something completely unprecedented in my head right now, to the point I don't know how to react. Therefore, as the brain, I'm shutting the fuck down. Like, I can't even imagine the concept of like, you do this with 100 people and you can only remember a handful of them because your brain was turning itself off at a certain point. And yet people want to act like, shit like this should be like normal or what, oh, fuck it, just do whatever, right? Like, who cares, Nah, you gotta realize that at a certain point, it's not about like exploring your sexuality or anything. This is just degeneracy. Let's just call it for what it is. Like, as I said before, this is one of those things where literally nobody leaves this situation better off. And realistically, I think everybody involved should have known beforehand, like, dude, this is something you can't change. This isn't something that you can fix later down the line. Now, the problem here is obviously there's regret being shown on both sides. Like I said, there was an interview with one of the guys where he's like obviously showing some regret and he's thinking back poorly on what he did. And then of course now she's crying, oh, this wasn't as great as I expected. You know what I mean? Now, like I said, there's been a pretty diverse mix of opinions where you got a lot of people who are blaming one side or the other. I think everybody involved in this shit deserves some blame to some extent. You know what I mean? Like, participating in 100-man run-throughs, okay, as a man, that is not normal behavior, okay? The average guy is not going out and running through situations like this, right? It's just not going down. So to actually go through with that, like, that puts you in a different echelon of people altogether, How many people can say they experienced something like this? Not that many. And realistically, it should be none, okay? But it's like very clear that the human brain was not designed to handle something like this. Like, no matter what people say, you as a person were not designed physically or mentally to have 100 partners in the same fucking day, okay? That is not natural. That is not something that happened, like that's just insane. And so, yeah, of course, like, you weren't gonna be able to handle this. That's a fucking insane thing to go through. Now, this is the problem, is that when, one side or the other gets blamed, when shit like this happens, it really doesn't actually address the root of the problem because, there's a lot of shit about like OnlyFans models. Like this girl, she's an OnlyFans model. A lot of people, they think that like outright that shit should be banned and whatnot. And they have their arguments for it and they have their reasonings and their rationale for it. And the issue is that, when it comes to stuff like this, I think a lot of these people are just being pressured into doing it at this point. You know what I mean? Like, I think a lot of girls, they just have this shit sold to them, like at an early age, like, oh, well, if all else fails, I can just do fucking OnlyFans and whatnot, right? And not only do I think that that's like a really poor example as society that we should be setting, like we shouldn't be telling people that that's like, oh, fuck it, you flunk out of college, cool, start this, right? But also, like, it's promoting this shit, right? Where you end up with the 1 in a million examples like this. I mean, let's be real. No one involved in this is going to be the same person anymore. You know what I mean? This is one of those things you hold with you for the rest of your life. And when you put yourself through some shit like this, I mean, like, you got to think, man, like, her face is in this documentary. It's like permanent knowledge now. You don't get away from some shit like this. You know what I'm saying? Like, they always say, oh, the internet's permanent. Like, whatever you say, whatever you post, anything online, that stuff is going to stick around forever. And like, there's some truth and some non-truth to it. But like in instances like this shit will never go away. I mean, so many people are talking about this on Twitter. So many people are like commenting on the documentary itself. It's actually insane. You know, this is literally who she is now. And I hate that that's even like a thought. I mean, imagine being known basically as the person who got 1v100 by a bunch of fucking masked men. I mean, it's a disgusting title to hold, and it's not something that anyone should strive for. But she did. She thought that was like something she wanted to do. She went through with it, and you know, that's the thing. Hindsight's always 20/20. This is one of those situations, though, where it's like, come on. The reality is, I think this woman was just super naive. I don't think that she really thought anything through. I think that part is evident enough. Like, clearly, no one who did anything like this has thought through the ramifications enough, has thought through the consequences enough. Because, like I said, all of us basically can see, like, no one's coming out of this better. No one's coming out of this happier. This is like one of those fucking traumatizing things you can really never escape. But apparently, these people had to do it to prove it or whatever. And I just don't understand that mentality because like I said, once it's done and it's online, it's out there. Like, people know you for that now. You walk down the street, people might recognize you. I mean, that's just a fucked up thing to even have to imagine for yourself, like as a life, right? And I think that situations like this need to be made more of an example of, right? Like, we need to show people that, like, when you make the decision to do shit like this, when you decide to film yourself in documentaries, doing shit like this, when you decide to have entire paid accounts where you're basically e-whoring and whatnot, right? And you're filming yourself and you're sending pictures of yourself to people and all these other things, right? Like, you're setting yourself up for something that's never going to go away. Like, you're setting yourself up to be put in a predicament where, yeah, maybe later down the road, sure, you want to back out. You don't want to be the OnlyFans model anymore. Maybe you want to be a mother, or you want to move into a different career field or something, or you want to go back to college, but you don't get that opportunity once you've already submitted all this shit. And unfortunately for her and the men who regretted doing this and shit, right? Once you partake in this, it's done. It's just a really fucked up and weird all-around situation, right? It's one of those things where it feels like it went without saying, right? Like, I mean, that's the thing, though, is like, when it comes down to it, you know, like, some people, they just always have to test the limit. They always got to fucking push the boundary or, like, put their hand in the fire to see how hot it is. And the craziest part, to wrap all of this up, right, is you would think that, like, she learned her lesson. It's fucking disgusting. It's a terrible thing to put yourself through. It literally basically just turns you into a product. It's fucking terrible, right? Like, you'd never want to do this, right? Well, apparently, next year in 2025, she will be attempting to surpass her limits that she has already reached. Apparently, Kaioken, or as I should put it, Gaiomen times 100 wasn't enough for her, right? She needs to hit that power level 1000, if you know what I mean. So, according to her, the plan is next year, she's going to go 1v1000. And I'm not making this up. Apparently, this after, you know, basically putting yourself through all this horrible shit and traumatizing yourself, indignifying yourself, destroying your reputation, hurting your own soul with such a fucking depraved act, right? She now wants to completely outclass it in a way that I can honestly horrifically imagine will probably destroy her completely mentally. I mean, if this was enough, obviously, to fragment the mind and like put you in the dark place where you're like, damn, you're sitting there with that regret or whatever, I can't imagine how much worse it's going to be next time around. So I don't know. Honestly, a really just disgusting and like sad state of affairs that this shit has gotten to. I don't know why anyone in their right mind would think that something like this is like something you should try or want to do. But I think that's the problem with society now, right? Is like, there's some people who will probably celebrate shit like this, who will think that this is like awesome or whatever. They're gonna fucking buy our content from it. You know what I mean? Like, that's the sad reality here. So anyway, man, I just wanted to talk about this because like, it's just such a fucking wild topic. So anyway, with that being said, thank you guys for watching. If you did enjoy, make sure to leave a like, subscribe if you're brand new around here on the channel, follow me over on Twitter and Twitch at @SubToOptimus. Make sure to check out Shoptimus down below. Thank you to my Watch Optimus subscribers. Your support helps the channel tremendously. And until my next video, guys, this is Optimus, not going 1v100 and signing out.